Assalamu alaikum. Early hardships. There was one main reason for the Quraysh to reject the Prophet. Mecca was the center of pilgrimage because of the Kaaba, which housed 360 idols of the neighboring tribes and nations. Since Islam believed in only one God, the Quraysh feared that once the concept of one God became popular, the tribes would stop visiting the Kaaba to pay their homage to the idols. This would deprive them from respect they commanded as guardians of the Kaaba. People in great numbers from neighboring tribes used to visit Mecca all year round to make offerings to the idols. This brought prosperity to Mecca, for the trade flourished side by side with the pilgrimage. Mecca being a desert, no agriculture or economic resources existed there. The Kaaba was their only asset. But not all of the Meccans were hostile. There were people who gave serious thoughts to the message of the Quran and gradually began to accept Islam. In that period, about 200 people from Mecca as well as the neighboring settlements entered the fold of Islam. The Quraysh, who enjoyed the Meccans' leadership, considered the teachings of the new religion an insult to the religion of their forefathers. In Islam, they saw a danger to their own leadership. Such leaders as Abu Jahl, Abu Lahab were the most hostile of the Prophet. The chiefs of different clans gathered to discuss this matter. They all felt that if Abu Talib did not come to their way, they would have no difficulty in finding a solution to this problem. So they all came to Abu Talib to tell him to stop the Prophet from spreading his message. They all warned him to tell the Prophet to stop spreading his message or you'll abandon him. If you failed to do so, you should be ready to suffer for the deeds of your nephew. Abu Talib, an old man, felt that he would not be able to resist their wrath. So he told the Prophet that the Quraysh chiefs had said to him, and then added, my dearest nephew, look to your own safety and to the safety of your uncle, and do not cause me to carry a burden I cannot bear. For a while the Prophet stood motionless. On the one hand, there was his old uncle, weakened by the people's opposition, and the other hand with the responsibility to proclaim the truth to his last breath. So he decided to discharge his duty, whatever the cost, in a firm and calm voice. And with the tears in his eyes, he said, "O uncle, by God Almighty, I swear that even if they were to place the sun on my right hand and the moon on my left hand, I will not give up my mission. I must go on carrying it out till I die." Abu Talib, touched by the sincerity and force of the words uttered by his nephew, remained motionless for a while. Then he turned to the Prophet and said, "My nephew, go your way, do your duty. Let my people turn against me. I am with you. No one shall harm you as long as I live." Thank you.
Jazakallah khair, Mustafa. Assalamu alaikum. My name is Mahad and I'll be talking about the Miraj. In the 10th year of prophethood, the angel Jibril came to take the Prophet on the miraculous journey to the heavens known as Miraj. They first went from Makkah to Jerusalem, the Prophet riding on a winged horse. At Jerusalem, the Prophet said his prayers in the Temple of David, where all other prophets joined him in prayer. Then he ascended to the heavens, still accompanied by the angel Jibril. The Prophet ascended up the 7 heavens one by one. He met prophets in each heaven. He met Adam, the forefather of man, in the first heaven, John, son of Zachariah, and Jesus in the second heaven, Joseph in the third, Idris in the fourth, Aaron in the fifth, and Moses in the sixth. The Prophet Moses started crying when he saw the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. When he asked the reason why, the Prophet Moses said he was weeping as the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ would be able to lead more of his people to paradise than he himself had done. God granted an audience to his messenger. It was on this blessed occasion that the Prophet received God's commandments, including the prayer to be said 5 times daily. Originally, 50 daily prayers had been ordained, but Moses asked him to return and ask for a reduction. First, the prayers were reduced to 10, and then, when the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ went back for a further reduction, the number was reduced to 5. The Prophet then came back home. The Prophet was amazed to find the spot where he had lain was still warm, and that the cup that he had tipped over was still emptying. This incredible experience had taken place in less than a moment. The next morning, the Prophet told the Quraysh what had happened. They did not believe him. Many of the companions were amazed and wanted the Prophet to explain how such a thing could happen. But the Prophet's description of Jerusalem and the caravans he had seen on the way back to Makkah convinced them he was telling the truth. Jazakallah khair.